before he ever caught a touchdown from Aaron Rodgers.
Off Rodgers, time over the middle, Jordy Nelson. Nelson inside the 20. The 40, Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson was just a small-town kid with a big-time work ethic, baling hay in the hot Kansas sun. The rise from humble farm boy to one of the most reliable wide receivers in the NFL is the kind of story that doesn't just inspire. It reminds us that greatness can grow anywhere.
Straight down, and this is Jordy Nelson. Nothing wrong with him. All the way back from that ACL tear.
Even in the fields of Riley, Kansas. This is the story of Jordy Nelson and how he went from small-town farmer to Super Bowl champion. The story begins on a more than 1,000-acre cattle and wheat farm in the small town of Riley, Kansas. Jordy Nelson was born on May 31, 1985 to Alan and Kim Nelson as the middle of 3 children, and his hometown Leonardville was tiny with a population of roughly 500 people. Life on the farm was tough, but it built Jordy into someone who never shied away from hard work.
So that connection we had as a family of being around each other and relying on one another.
The Nelson farm, established by his great-great-grandfather who immigrated from Sweden, has been in the family for 4 generations. This led Jordy to follow suit, tending to 200 heads of Black Angus cattle, farming more than 1,000 acres of crop with just his father and his older brother, working long hours before and after school.
He'd help out on the farm, but it wasn't his true love, not like our older boy.
If he was going to come out on the farm, he wanted to have a list.
Yeah, he wanted to go get it done and then be done.
He was our baler. He always did all the baling. I mean, he'd be out at night until midnight, some nights baling hay, but he might not be out of bed till.
As you may have guessed, Jordy kept himself busy with other hobbies outside the farm life. I did not have video games, ever. I grew up on a farm, so we were either working or playing outside. Any sport. Jordy played every sport in the book. Football, basketball, track, and even played baseball in the summer. And he excelled at every sport he played. In fact, he was recognized as an all-state basketball player, averaging 17.2 points per game his senior season for the Falcons. He also won state championships in track, including the 100-meter dash, 10.63 seconds, 200, 21.64 seconds, 400, 48.79 seconds, and long jump, 7 meters. But strangely enough, even though he'd become one of the best receivers in the NFL, Jordy didn't play wide receiver in high school. He played quarterback, and a dangerous one at that, by passing for over 1,000 yards and rushing for 1,572 yards for a combined 33 touchdowns. He'd lead the Falcons to a respectable 8-2 record his senior year. He was named Flint Hills Player of the Year by the Manhattan Mercury and was a 2-time first-team All-Mid-East League selection. But here's the thing, Riley County High wasn't on many recruiting maps, and Jordy wasn't showing up on any national rankings. Nelson considered scholarships to Division II schools like Washburn and Emporia State, but chose Kansas State, his hometown school, to see what he could achieve there. The Nelson family had season tickets for years, so for Jordy, Kansas State football wasn't just a choice, it was part of his DNA. Legendary coach Bill Snyder played a crucial role in persuading Jordy to walk on, and after redshirting his first year, Jordy switched positions from quarterback to safety. But it wasn't until 2005 when he made the transition to wide receiver that things finally started to click, and when they did, Jordy hit the ground running. In just his first full season at receiver, Jordy led the team with receptions, 45, receiving yards, 669, and receiving touchdowns, 6, earning second-team All-Big 12 honors from the Kansas City Star and honorable mentions from both the conference coaches and the Associated Press. Not bad for a guy who never played the position before. But it wasn't just the stats, it was how and when he delivered. In just his 4th game at the position, Jordy torched the defending Big 12 champion Oklahoma Sooners for 107 yards and a 73-yard touchdown. He went on to score in each of his first 7 games, becoming the first receiver in school history to do so. That kind of consistency at a brand new position was almost unheard of.
Caught by Jordy Nelson, breaks a tackle at the 25, up the right side to the 50.
He capped the year with a 7-catch, 74-yard, 1-touchdown performance against Missouri, finishing with nearly 15 yards per reception on the season. His 45 catches were the second most ever by a K-State sophomore, and his 8 touchdowns ranked 7th all-time for a single season in school history. For a former high school quarterback from a small town, Jordy was proving he belonged, and then some. But then, everything changed in Manhattan. Following the 2005 season, legendary head coach Bill Snyder stepped away from the program that he had spent nearly 2 decades building from the ground up. His retirement marked not only the end of an era, but the start of a turbulent transition.
Hope you understand that you are my family as well.
In his place came Ron Prince, a rising name in coaching who made history as Kansas State's first and only black head football coach, and the first in Big 12 history. His hiring was a landmark moment, but also brought sweeping changes in philosophy, structure, and expectations. For players like Jordy Nelson, it meant adjusting to a brand new system, just as he was hitting his stride. The 2006 season was marred by injuries, inconsistency, and an offense that couldn't seem to find its identity. Jordy battled through physical setbacks, but even when he was on the field, the passing game never found its rhythm. For Jordy, the season felt like a step backward, a missed opportunity, and yet he never flinched. He returned to the offseason with the same mentality that he learned growing up on the farm. When things get tough, you don't complain. You get back to work. He was pouring everything into building chemistry with rising sophomore quarterback Josh Freeman. After a rocky 2006, both players returned hungrier, more focused, and with something to prove. Jordy worked tirelessly that summer, sharpening routes, perfecting timing, and grinding through reps with Freeman until the connection became second nature. When the 2007 season kicked off, Jordy Nelson didn't just bounce back, he blew up. He and quarterback Josh Freeman lit up defenses all year. Jordy was unguardable, fast, physical, and precise. Lined up anywhere on the field, he carved up man coverage, found soft spots in zones, and outmuscled defenders for jump balls. Freeman always knew where to find him. By season's end, Jordy had rewritten the Kansas City record books. 122 receptions, 1,606 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 100-yard games, 6 games with double-digit catches, and he showed up big against top competition. 15 catches, 209 yards versus Missouri State. 15 for 165 and a touchdown versus Fresno State, 14 for 214 and a score at Iowa State, 176 yards and 3 TDs in a shootout at Oklahoma State. He wasn't just a receiver either. Jordy threw 2 touchdown passes on trick plays and returned a 92-yard punt for a score against Baylor, the longest in the Big 12 that year. Scouts took notice, and so did the national media. By year's end, Jordy was a consensus All-American, a Biletnikoff Award finalist alongside Michael Crabtree and Mario Manningham, first team All-Big 12, second nationally in receptions and receiving yards, one of only 2 players to top 1,600 yards receiving. And it was only his 3rd full season at wide receiver. From small-town quarterback to national standout, Jordy Nelson had become a college football force, and now the NFL was watching. Scouts who questioned whether Jordy Nelson was just a system guy or a product of a weak conference were suddenly rethinking everything. He had the production, the tape, the polish, and now he had serious draft buzz. But Jordy wasn't done proving people wrong just yet. In February 2008, he showed up at the NFL Combine in Indy with a chance to cement his spot as one of the top wide receiver prospects in the draft. And much like his senior season, he delivered in every category. He measured in at 6'3", 217 pounds, a prototypical NFL frame. In a class stacked with athletic freaks and flashy names, Jordy reminded everyone that he belonged in that conversation too. He ran a 4.5 140-yard dash, a strong time for his size, quieting any lingering doubts about his deep speed. His 10.3 broad jump and 31-inch vertical showed off his lower body explosiveness, and in the short shuttle and 3-cone drills, he moved like a much smaller receiver. But it wasn't just the numbers. What impressed coaches and GMs most were the intangibles. In interviews, Jordy came across as smart, humble, and fiercely competitive. He broke down coverages like a quarterback. He spoke about route concepts, leverage, and timing like someone who had been playing the position his whole life, not just for 3 years. And during on-field drills, he caught everything. Smooth hands, sharp breaks, no wasted motion, no showboating, just clean professional work. Exactly the kind of receiver teams wanted in their locker room. From walk-on to All-American, from overlooked to undeniable, Jordy Nelson's next chapter was about to begin in the NFL. Draft day, April 26, 2008. Sitting with family in Riley, Kansas, far from the bright lights of New York, Jordy kept things simple. No elaborate party, no cameras, just people who had been with him from the very beginning. The same hands that helped him bale hay and run routes in the pasture were now refreshing draft trackers and waiting for a phone call. It didn't take long. With the 36th pick overall in the 2000 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers selected Jordy Nelson, wide receiver, Kansas State. The reaction? Quiet pride from Jordy, cheers and hugs from family, and across Packer Nation, some confusion. Green Bay already had Donald Driver. They had Greg Jennings. They had James Jones and just drafted tight end Jermichael Finley. So when they took another receiver, and a white receiver from a Big 12 school at that, fans and media scratched their heads. But the Packers knew what they were doing. General manager Ted Thompson and head coach Mike McCarthy saw a player who fit their system perfectly. A big-bodied receiver with soft hands, deceptive speed, and elite football IQ. And behind closed doors, they were already preparing for the future, grooming weapons for a young quarterback named Aaron Rodgers, who was finally stepping into the spotlight after backing up Brett Favre for 3 seasons. Jordy entered his rookie season with humility, but also with a purpose. He didn't come in expecting to start. He came in ready to earn everything, just like he always had. He made his NFL debut on Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings and didn't disappoint. Jordy caught a 29-yard pass from Rodgers and showed flashes of what was to come. Sure hands, smooth routes, and zero fear of the moment. Throughout the 2008 season, he proved to be a reliable option in clutch situations. He finished his rookie year with 33 receptions, 366 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 22.5 yards per return on 11 kickoff attempts, showcasing his versatility on special teams. While those numbers didn't jump off the page, inside the locker room everyone saw what was developing. Aaron Rodgers trusted him. Coaches praised his work ethic. Veterans respected how he carried himself. He was learning, growing, building a foundation of what would become one of the most iconic careers in Packers history. In 2009, Jordy Nelson entered his second NFL season with higher expectations and a bigger role in Green Bay's evolving offense. After a successful rookie campaign, coaches were eager to see how Jordy could build on that foundation, especially as Aaron Rodgers was coming into his own as a full-time starter. Jordy continued to serve as a rotational receiver with a crowded and experienced receiving core. While targets were still somewhat limited, he made the most of every opportunity, showcasing his reliable hands, precise route running, and growing chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. That season, Jordy finished with 22 receptions, 320 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and an impressive 14.5 yards per catch, a sign of his big play potential. But it wasn't just his offensive contributions that stood out. Jordy remained a valuable asset on special teams. He handled kick return duties, racking up 441 return yards, and showcased the same toughness and discipline that had earned him a roster spot as a rookie. While 2009 wasn't a breakout year statistically, it was a crucial year of development. Nelson grew more confident in the Packers' complex offensive system, continued building rapport with Rodgers, and laid the groundwork for what would become a dynamic receiving career. And though fans didn't know it yet, Jordy's quiet progression in 2009 was just the calm before the storm, because in 2010, he turned potential into production. It all came together in 2010. The Packers battled injuries throughout the season, but thanks to one of the league's deepest rosters and Aaron Rodgers playing at an elite level, they clawed their way into the playoffs as the NFC's 6th seed. Jordy Nelson, now in his 3rd season, had earned the trust of the coaching staff and emerged as a reliable weapon in Rodgers' arsenal. Though his regular season totals, 582 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, were still modest, they only told part of the story. He was coming up big in big moments. In Week 16 against the Giants with the season on the line, he caught 4 passes for 124 yards, including an 80-yard bomb that showed just how lethal he could be downfield. Then came the postseason, and that's where everything changed. Nelson elevated his game when it mattered most. He made key plays throughout the Packers' playoff run, helping Green Bay knock off the Eagles, Falcons, and Bears en route to Super Bowl 61. In the wild card round against Philadelphia, he hauled in 2 catches for 39 yards, including a crucial 3rd down grab that extended a scoring drive. Against Atlanta in the divisional round, he snagged 8 passes for 79 yards and a touchdown. His first career postseason score, and a statement that he was no longer flying under the radar. In the NFC Championship at Chicago, Nelson contributed with 4 catches for 61 yards, helping move the chains in a slugfest that punched Green Bay's ticket to the Super Bowl. And then, under the brightest lights in football, he shined brightest. Super Bowl 45. In a showdown against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Packers entered with one of the deepest receiving cores in the NFL. But early in the game, veteran wideout Donald Driver, a trusted target and locker room leader, went down with an ankle injury and was ruled out. Suddenly, the moment was bigger, the stage was brighter, and the spotlight shifted. That's when Jordy Nelson stepped in and stepped up.
Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, touchdown, Green Bay.
With driver sidelined, Nelson became Aaron Rodgers' primary target on the biggest night of their careers. And he delivered, in every sense of the word. Nelson finished the game with 9 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown, a performance that set a Packers Super Bowl record for most receiving yards in a single game. He scored Green Bay's first touchdown of the night on a 29-yard strike down the sideline, setting the tone for the offense. Even after a couple of early drops, Nelson didn't blink. He responded with clutch catch after clutch catch, including a critical 38-yard gain late in the fourth quarter that helped put the Packers in position to close the door on Pittsburgh. From a backup role to a Super Bowl hero, Jordy Nelson's breakout was undeniable. When the final whistle blew and the confetti rained down, he wasn't just a champion, he was a star in the making. And that night, the entire football world saw what the Packers fans had already begun to believe. Jordy Nelson was ready for center stage. After the Super Bowl, Nelson didn't slow down. In fact, he got better. 2011 was his true breakout year. He caught 68 passes for 1,263 yards and a career-high 15 touchdowns. Rodgers and Nelson had developed a near telepathic connection.
Play fake at the start. Rodgers rolls down the field and Nelson. He's got it and he's on his way to play.
The back shoulder fades, the deep sideline throws. It became a masterclass in chemistry. Over the next few years, Nelson was one of the most consistent wide receivers in the NFL. From 2011 to 2014, he averaged over 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns per season. In 2014, he had a career-high 1,519 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. He was voted to his first and only Pro Bowl, and it felt like he and Rodgers were unstoppable. But then, in 2015, disaster struck. In a preseason game against the Steelers, Nelson tore his ACL. His entire season was gone before it even began. At 30 years old, many questioned whether he'd return to form. But Jordy never let setbacks define him. He rehabbed relentlessly. The farm boy mentality never left. And in 2016, he came back with a vengeance. 97 catches, 1,257 yards, and a league-leading 14 touchdowns. He won NFL Comeback Player of the Year and reminded everyone that he was still elite. But as the 2010s progressed, the Packers began transitioning. Injuries and age caught up, and in 2018, Green Bay released Nelson in a cost-cutting move. He signed with the Raiders and had a respectable year, 739 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it was clear that he was no longer in his prime.
Quick pop over the middle, that is complete, and Jordy Nelson off to the races. 30, 20, 10, and out of bounds.
In March 2019, Jordy Nelson retired from the NFL. He walked away with 613 career receptions, over 8,500 yards, and 72 touchdowns. More importantly, he left the game on his own terms. And where did he go next? Right back to where it all started. Jordy returned to his family farm in Kansas. No TV gigs, no podcasts, no coaching jobs, just cattle, tractors, and hard work. He spent his retirement raising his kids, working the land, and giving back to his community. And even though he's no longer catching passes on Sundays, he's still a legend in Green Bay and a hero in Riley County. Jordy Nelson isn't the type of player you can measure purely by stats, though his stats were impressive. His true legacy lies in his reliability, his humility, and his unshakable work ethic. He had never demanded the spotlight, he just did his job, week in and week out. Ask Aaron Rodgers who he trusted most in crunch time, and you'll hear the same name, Jordy. Ask Packers fans who made those impossible sideline catches look so routine, and they'll say the same thing. And ask any small-town kid if they believe someone from a Kansas farm can make it to the NFL, chances are they'll point to Jordy Nelson as proof. From quarterback in high school to walk-on in college to Super Bowl champion and NFL superstar, Jordy Nelson's journey wasn't just handed to him, he earned every yard. He's living proof that you don't need to come from a football factory to make it. All you need is talent, humility, and the kind of work ethic that's built under the hot Kansas sun. And in a league full of flash, Jordy proved that sometimes quiet greatness leaves the loudest legacy. If you enjoyed this story, stick with Primetime, subscribe, and check out some of our other content right here.